continuing with the precious human body or the state, many times when we talk about merit, you will now realize that the concept of Buddhist merit is very much to do with who actually has this kind of precious human character. You know, normally when we look at rich and powerful, we say they have lots of merit to become rich and powerful. But from the spiritual point of view, not necessarily they have the merit. In fact, they may be really deprived from the merit, and they are really going through the poverty. Merit is very much judged or measured by who has this kind of awkward feeling that we were talking earlier. So for this reason, obviously, when you read the Kunzana Mishalung, you will, like the categories of precious human body, you will notice that in the Dharma, given the choice, you would rather choose to become human than a god. If you are a god, you may be rich, powerful, beautiful, all of that, but you have no time for the Dharma. You don't have that awkward feeling because you are distracted all the time. To the certain extent, we, us human beings, 21st century human beings, we are in a way going through a bit of a godly experience. We, from the materialistic point of view, we could fly from here to Mongolia like within, like 9 hours. We can just buy a tomato in the 7-Eleven shop. We don't have to plant it, and we don't have to, all those things have changed. So we have and then we have all this endless entertainment, movies, musics, shows, Facebooks, all kinds of entertainment. What are they doing? They are making us forget this awkward feeling. Just, because the distraction is a bit of like a painkiller. If we don't have even a 10% of what we have today, then situation will force us to contemplate inside. Yeah, if we have just 10%, sorry. If we just have if we don't have these, I think better. If we don't have any of this entertainment, we will be forced to look in. So, looking in is so unbearable for habit, defile the mind that is so habituated with the defilement. Other elements of other character, other things that makes this precious human character precious are things like merit for all sorts of things. As the story of Mriti Jana, one of the great Indian scholar and saint. Mriti Jana. From his omniscience, he observed that his late mother, his deceased mother, was born in Tibet and as in a minor hell realm in Tibet as a minor hell realm being. So he came to Tibet to, I guess, liberate his mother. On the way, the translator died, and Mriti Jana basically got lost and wandered surrounding East Tibet. Ended up becoming even a shepherd, working as a shepherd. This was much earlier than Atisha Dipamkara's, coming to Tibet. Later, when Atisha came and he heard that Mriti Jana actually was in Tibet looking after sheep. Of course, by then, Smriti Jana's passed long ago. Atisha immediately, had tears in his eyes and said, in both east and the west of India, there is no greater scholar and saint than Smriti Jana, and he came to Tibet and you guys didn't even have a merit to receive anything worthwhile from this man. So it's like a vista for a blind person. If you don't have the eyes, then the grand vista or the beautiful view is meaningless. Some of us might have a wish to practice the Dharma, but it ends up becoming more gearing towards like higher rebirth, or more like a higher rebirth, as I was mentioning about Zambala or Gurukula practices, higher rebirth or a more comfortable life. And that also means you are not really adorned with precious human character. Another way of looking at the precious human character is someone who actually understands pain and suffering. Someone who is totally spoiled. Someone who has never really went through any pain. And I'm talking about many lamas and rinpoches, younger generations. With all due respect, even though they're supposedly high lamas, sometimes I even wonder whether we have precious human character that is being taught here. Because they teach maybe like, samsara is full of suffering, because that's how it is written in the text. But what do they know about some suffering? They have never been refused a cup of tea, never been jilted by a girlfriend, never had to go through the pain of rejection, never had to kneel down with a rose flower and a ring and beg. So someone who is totally spoiled, someone who knows nothing about suffering, cannot have this kind of awkward feeling. You cannot. There's no reference. But on the other hand, as I told you about the beggars in India, if you only know the suffering, if you are only going through that, you have no time. You don't have awkward feeling. So, yes, your wish to practice the Dharma may not be happening every second, every moment. But time to time, you are attacked by this. What am I doing here? I'm this age now. I've been doing whatever I'm supposed to do. It just never comes to an end. And in fact, we have never heard someone who has completed what they have done, what they are supposed to do. Everybody who died on this earth died leaving a big plan behind. So once in a blue moon, once in a while, when you think about these things, that's really precious. You have to cultivate that. You have to really, that's a worthy of a glass of wine. Like how we celebrate our birthday with a candle light dinner and so on and so forth. This is the birth of the awkward feeling, the birth of the spiritual inclination. Such an important occasion, something to celebrate. Very important attribute for the Dhamma practice. As Patrul Rinpoche said, even small, meager, mundane, worldly, activities, we need to gather lots of cause and conditions. And here we are talking about a grand activity, the activity of achieving the enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. For that, this kind of attribute is very important to gather. And one must contemplate whether we have it or not, as I've been repeatedly telling you. If we don't have, if we have, we should rejoice. If we don't have, we should then try to have it. When one of the great Dzogchen masters was called Myoshul Lungtok, when he told his guru that he cannot understand the nature of the mind. Basically, he cannot practice the Mahasandhi, Dzogpa Chenpo. That he has heard that Dzogchen is the quick method to the enlightenment. That if you apply it properly, you can achieve the rainbow body within this life. But still, he doesn't know what Mahasandhi is, what is nature of the mind. And then his master said, okay, you no need to worry too much. He said, why don't you follow me? He followed as instructed. It was at night. Both the guru and the student went to a field, and the guru said, let's lie down, facing up to the sky. They both lie down, and then guru said, can you see the stars? And then the student said, yes, I can see the stars. And then, can you hear the dogs barking from the distance? He said, yes, I can hear the dogs barking. And then the master said, that's it. That's it, that is Dzogpa Chenpo. And because of that instruction and that introduction, from then on, Myoshul Lungto, his whole approach and outlook towards the whole phenomena changed. Things that used to be important is no more important. Things that makes him worked up, does not work up him anymore. He felt that, all along he has been tied up by a big rope, and suddenly a sharp knife have cut all this rope, and like complete sort of a feeling of release and relax. Nothing is big deal. At last he knew what it meant by don't worry. At last, for the first time, he knew what it meant by relax. The tension or the fear of getting distracted and sense of victory when you can actually meditate both collapsed. The stress created by what will people think? What will people say? What will my family think? All the face saving and all of that collapsed. At the same time, he became the most adaptable to all kinds of situations. A kid can come to his room and he will play with the kid. After a long, serious conversation with important people, with the politicians or lamas or whatever, after the long conversations, he laughed at every single event of that. Looking at the samsaric activity, he felt the union of sadness and humor. He felt both, mixture of sadness and humor. It's just so funny how people, go to saloon and use shampoo, and it's just so funny why people polish their shoes, and it's just kind of so at the same time it's very sad because to put so much effort in doing all these things. Now, why are we not going through like this? Even though I've just told you, I repeated, can you see the stars? I should say, can we see the lights? Because maybe we are not feeling awkward enough. And we are not, if we do, we are not cultivating it enough. Yeah. And, by the way, even having this precious human body does not mean that it's going to last forever. There's not even a single proof you can show that between the two breaths, in and out, you will not die. You know, we get a little bit funny feeling when we see the dead body, like we feel kind of, some of us, we are even afraid of dead body. Well, like it or not, we are traveling with one of them all the time. It takes shorter than a second that you will become that dead body anytime. For sure, we will become that dead body. But that's not the worst news. Even worse is we don't know when it is going to become. That uncertainty, shampooing in the morning, coffin in the afternoon. Coffin, dead bodies, coffin. That. And the dead body, you know, the body impermanence is actually not that surprising, even though that seems to be the most shocking for us. You know, people mourn about when, oh, somebody died.
No.
Actually, even worse than that, our idea dies, our value dies, our friendship dies, our enmity dies. Everything changes all the time. We have seen many times, I have seen, used to be kind of very strange, very dodgy kind of a monk. Suddenly now they are in the rank of, not yet His Holiness, but going there. Dodgy, we don't know. Very person under the question mark. We have seen lots of people who have done so many bad things. Towards the end of their life, they try to become good practitioner. More subtly, our experience of our meditation changes. This afternoon, maybe we can concentrate. We get inspired. We feel like very compassionate. We have loving and kindness. But tomorrow morning or this evening, all this can go. So remembering this impermanence is important. Wherever you are staying, it's going to be impermanent. Wherever you are sitting right now, might as well rely on pure realm. Because where you are sitting is impermanent, might as well, instead of having attachment to that, might as well long for pure realm. Sustenance, nutrition, all these are important for our life, but they are also impermanent. So therefore, rely more on the sustenance and nutrition of meditation. Our sleep, resting is important. Sleeping is important, but even that obviously is impermanent. We wake up. So might as well rely on dissolving ourselves into the luminosity. Ordinary worldly wealth is impermanent. Rely on noble wealth such as devotion and compassion. Friends and relatives are very impermanent. Their mood, what they like, their companionship are very impermanent. Instead, begin to increase liking towards isolation. Basically, companionship is impermanent, so therefore long for to be alone. Fame and high positions are very impermanent. So might as well invest on being humble and stay low, because more likely it will stay longer. And what we utter, the words, are completely impermanent. So try to include some mantras in between. Our devotion and renunciation also is very impermanent. So generate determination. A little bit of a realization and a little bit of understanding of the Dharma, these are impermanent. Instead, try to become a good human being. Anyway, Buddha said, of all the thoughts, the thought of impermanent is the most precious. In the Vinaya Sutra, Buddha said, someone who offered food to my disciples, great disciples such as Shariputra, 100 of them, 200 numbers of Shariputra, food, lunch, dinner, whatever. Instead, if you think of impermanence just momentarily, that has more merit. Impermanence will cause you to enter yourself into the Dharma. And once you entered into the Dharma, if you still keep on practicing the bringing the thought of impermanent, the thought of impermanent will not let you relax. It will make you feel urgent. At the end, the thought of impermanence will make you realize emptiness. Also, many other masters said, you must think about impermanence again and again. Because when you think about impermanence and the death again and again, then when you're convinced that you are going to die no matter what, then you will have no difficulty in abandoning the non-virtuous actions and thoughts. So with these thoughts of impermanence, again, listen to more transmissions. One of the reasons why death is so unbearable for us, of course, there's the uncertainty because we have never experienced the death. So we don't know how it feels. No one has sort of reported or emailed us after the death that this is how it is. So there's a big sense of unknown. But actually, more importantly, the reason why we are so afraid of the death or the impermanence is lack of understanding of the futility of samsara, futility of this life. Yes, it is true. Nobody wants to suffer. Essenceless. Yes, it is true that nobody wants to suffer. Nobody wants to go through the pain. Nobody wants to be unhappy. But very few wants to abandon samsara. Can you see that, nobody wants to have the pain, but everybody is in love with the cause of the pain. And many times we also don't know that suffering is a suffering. It is because we never have a bird's eye view, so to speak. So it's like, I guess this earth, I was told that this earth moves very fast, but we can't feel it. I guess, for one thing, our suffering is a very slow motion suffering, so to speak. Nevertheless, it is a suffering. And many times these sufferings are painted with a rosy color. And then we wear many different kinds of spectacles to look at already rosy colored samsara. Many times we wear many different kinds of sunglasses. In fact, if you look at our consumer society, everything we sell, you go into one shop today and look, one after another, they're all designed to paint rosy color, or they're all designed to, put a design of different sunglasses. So trying to have a bird's eye view generally towards the samsara, and particularly the samsaric life, which is for us, is a human life. To have the bird's eye view is very important. For instance, like myself, I have reached the, past my, like if I'm living here 100 years, I have, which is impossible almost, right, to live on this earth. I've passed the middle now. So anything that I do, thinking that I will live another 1,000 years, is a suffering. It's unnecessary. Now, actually, in my age, it is time to begin to conclude. It's definitely not time to begin new things, even though I always end up doing something new. Some of you must have heard about my plan of translating the words of the Buddha into foreign language. When we had our first conference about it, which we had with like many scholars and lamas and university professors, like about 100 over, and ambitiously we draw the strategy, and our plan is within 100 years we will finish translating the words of the Buddha. Even we are very successful. I've already thought, okay, so that means I will finish, I might be able to read already translated volumes, maybe about, if I'm lucky, maybe about 40 volumes, complete version. Still about 60 left. During the lunch breaks, I was telling this to the other lamas, this is a bit of a contradiction to what we always think about. Our life is impermanent. We should not be thinking about long term. Some of the older lamas give me the scoldings of the century, saying that, for the Dharma, one should have, like a grand, vision. I guess, they're right. But because, Buddha Dharma is growing everywhere. And looking at the present situation of the Buddha Dharma, it sometimes worries me. Because presently, people follow a person. Like Dr. Liu, for instance. He thinks he follows me. And he knows nothing about what Buddha said. But he thinks he knows. And this is very dangerous, because the words of the Buddha will be lost.
因为如果你这样想呢，佛所说的东西呢就不会再存在了。
He's kind of lucky that I'm not a fanatical, religious leader here. Who, not yet, anyway. Because I could say, in the sutras, so sutras, it says that if you blow yourself up somewhere in a water village, you will go to heaven right away. Because access to this kind of the actual sort of the basic teaching of the Buddha is not available. So, for that reason, I think the translating the word of the Buddha for different languages is really important. Now, this might make us Tibetan and Chinese think, oh, well, we can relax because we have it in our own language. But I was told, like, even among the Chinese, there are very few Chinese who can read what Xuanzang has translated and understand what he wrote. So it's a high time for even the Chinese to think, sort of, not really retranslate, but, update something. Oh, anyway, sorry for sidetrack. This was... Anyway, looking at our life, human life, full of suffering and dissatisfaction and uncertainty, saving wealth for supposedly our beloved children. This is just one of the examples. And these beloved children not appreciating all the hard work that we have gone through. In the text, the detailed teachings on the suffering of different realms. Different realms does not necessarily has to be understood as somewhere truly existing, externally existing realm. It can happen within our life in the course of a day. For instance, even the suffering of God realm, especially when they are near death. For instance, like the first sign of the death for the gods is like they will not feel like sitting in the same spot. I think this happens to us. And then things gets worn out or not fashionable right away. Like you buy a very expensive shirt, and when in the shops, right? And when you reach home, when you look at it, you don't even bother to take the price tag off. You never wear. You have lost your interest. These things happens to us, and the hungry ghost realm. It happens to us very much. Many different places, we have so much waste of food. I'm sure Taipei City alone must be wasting just like tons and tons of food. And I'm sure there are people who are just struggling just to feed themselves. So we live in a hungry ghost realm everywhere. And hungry ghost attitude we have. Especially like things like, to become slim, you don't eat. That's a hungry ghost attitude, a little bit. Sacrifice all those nice sauce. Sacrifice all this nice sauce just for the idea of slim. And of course, bulimia, right? Some of us, even though we are as skinny as a stick, we still think we are, fat, so we don't eat. Then also things like post-shopping or post-dinner regret or depression. After going to shopping, then whole night brooding about how we shouldn't have bought it. Things like that. In gross and subtle level, all six realms attitude is with us. All 6 realms suffering. So we need to contemplate on the suffering of samsara again and again. If we do that, then lesser attachment will help us not to be afraid of death also. Okay, I know we are all very, very hungry, but I will read 10 minutes more and then we will... I'm sorry for this very strange timetable, which was designed particularly by me. After lunch, I never like to give teachings. I'm sure you also don't want to listen to the teachings, generally. But we might have to do it towards the, maybe day after tomorrow or something like that.
Like longer.
We might have to do it, after a break, after the lunch also. Okay, one more segment.